Hi, this is Emma from Arise, and I'm here to tell you about and to welcome you to our new podcast at Arise Home Education. This is going to be a place where home educators can be encouraged, where you can be informed of great resources, where we hope to give you practical ideas and tips and advice for every stage of your home ed journey. We're going to be having guests. We're going to have in the next coming weeks. We'll be featuring our tutors at Arise Home Education. We'll also be having other guests who will come along and speak to you about areas that they are passionate about or where they have a particular expertise. In the next couple of weeks, look out for a podcast where I interview Claire Rogerson. Many of you will be familiar with Claire if you live in the Central Belt. She's a well-known figure in the home ed community. She is absolutely lovely. She is a great encourager, a great networker. She loves bringing home educators together and creating that space for community. She's going to be talking about creative ways to home educate when you have young children. And that's she's just lovely. I think you'll all love Claire. We will also be discussing more spiritual aspects of home education. Coming up, I'm going to be doing a podcast on prayer as a home educator and both the creative ways to facilitate prayer as a home ed mum, because we know that can be really difficult when you're surrounded by young children. And we're also going to be discussing some of the more political and topical points that are affecting home educators and Christians in the UK and in Scotland. So I hope this will be a blessing to you. If you really want to see anything featured in this podcast, please put that in the comments and please subscribe. Thank you. Hi everyone, it's Emma from Arise and I'm joined today by Hannah Smith, who is a new tutor with us at Arise Home Education, and we're going to be talking today about everything sciencey and mathsy, because Hannah is a fellow mathematical physicist like myself, so that was many years ago. So this is going to be a bit of a geeky science chat today. Hannah, can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into all this lovely science?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Hannah Smith. I just recently got married, so that's kind of what my life feels like right now, just getting used to how crazy it is to be married to someone. I'm from Livingston in West Lothian. I go to Ladywell Baptist Church there. It's the church I grew up in, and also where my husband works as the community worker. So we're involved a lot in the community, like outreach work and the youth work. I run the Sunday school there. So yeah, lots of exciting church things going on in our lives. But kind of professionally, yeah, I did mathematical physics, got a master's degree at Heriot-Watt University. And after that, I did my PGDE, which is the teacher training qualification, if people don't know. And I did that in 2020, which was a really fun
Oh
time
wow.
to, yeah, really interesting challenges there. So yeah, I did a lot. The entire degree was online. So sometimes I tell people I went to Strathclyde University, but I've actually never been there. It was all on Zoom, so I'm quite used to this online stuff. But yeah, after that, I taught in the classroom for a couple of years, about a year and a half actually. And from about a year and a half ago, I left and have been teaching and tutoring like online full time, and I love it. So yeah.
Fantastic. So one of the things you said when we first kind of met about how you had left the state system and that you were kind of doing online tutoring and teaching, and you'd never thought of the possibility about home education as a way of tutoring home ed students in this kind of way, and it really excited you the prospect of being able to do that. Why is that?
Yeah, I guess. Well, when I first kind of left my teaching job, it was a lot of different reasons, but part of it was that I felt, teaching is a job that people give their whole life to, which is fine. But I was like, I'm not sure that I feel like I should give my whole life to something that hates Christianity so much. And I've heard you say before, and I had said it to so many of my family friends, like schools are not neutral.
Yeah.
Um, and people think that, but they're not. They're not just not Christian. They're anti-Christian, and that was a big thing. And it's not just the like curriculum that's getting taught, but like the culture in schools is very, opposed to the Christian worldview, I think. And I read an article just the other day that violence in Scottish schools is at an all-time high. And like
Oh, I've
having
heard
been
of
in the
that.
classroom, I'm not surprised at all. Like it's just not a nice place for children to be. It's not a nice place for people to work. So yeah, that was part of it. And when I left, I didn't really have any sort of plan for what to do next. So I sort of fell into doing this tutoring online and teaching online. So yeah, I didn't really set out with any kind of goal. And I started teaching some home educated children, not through not like Christian necessarily.
Mhm.
And found like I enjoyed that quite a lot. And then I kind of started to think about like Christian education as a thing. I guess I feel like people don't know that there are options for Christian education. And it wasn't really until one of my good friends is kind of starting to panic about where to send her child to school and was starting to look into different options that kind of I realized that there were, communities out there of Christian home educating families. And I thought, I have this skill set, this job that I can do, and how can I support them? Because I think it's so important to to teach children a Christian education, because I feel like I heard people say a lot that you should be sending your kids to state schools so that they can evangelize or whatever, but we're not talking about sending missionaries out. You're talking about sending your unsaved children into a place where they're going to be preached something that's not the gospel. I think it's so important. And I was at an event recently where they were talking about overseas mission, which is obviously very important. But they said something about like taking the gospel to the people who need it most. And I remember saying to my husband, I don't think they need the gospel most. Who needs the gospel more than the people right in front of you? And our families are our primary mission field. Like, so it's so important, and I'm so excited to be able to do something to support people who are doing that.
Because we met at the Unite for Education conference. If anyone
Yes.
doesn't know what that is, Unite for Education is an organisation that really promotes Christian education, not just home education, but they support Christian schools as well. And I think it's really accurate to say that it's not many, as Christian education as a whole is not as well known within the wider Christian community
Mm.
as it perhaps should. And it's because we've just said schools are not neutral, and not only you might be sending your unsaved child to school, you might be sending a saved child to school,
Oh yeah.
but their faith is so it's not built up. You're not sending some big hitter evangelist out into this terrible place who's equipped, built up, strong in their faith. You're sending a child who is not very mature, is very vulnerable, not able to think through all this information that's being thrown at them. And as you said, the violence is increasing, bullying's increasing. It is a very toxic environment for a child to navigate. And then you're putting the pressure on them. Go and evangelize
Mm.
and save your school. And there's amazing testimonies of young people doing that, but it's not the norm. It,
No.
it's just not. I love the fact that you've captured this vision for wanting to help and serve the home ed community, because it's very, very rare.
Mm.
We're often, there's just not that culture in the wider church, and a lot of home educators, I personally haven't, but a lot of home educators will say they've had more negativity within their churches than within the world, which is actually really, really sad. Um,
Yeah.
so mathematical physics was your degree,
Mm.
and of course you're going to be doing astronomy as well with us. How has your faith informed your science, or your science informed your faith? What's that relationship for you like between the two? Because often people think there can be in conflict. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's always like the big question. I'm sure you're used to hearing it too. Of, how on earth can you possibly do science and be a Christian at the same time?
I think
Um,
math and physics is easier than
yeah, I
say
think so.
biology. I think biologists get a bit tighter. But astronomy is one that's people like, oh, how can you do astronomy? And
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like a question that I used to struggle with more when I was younger, and I did feel when I was at uni, there was a lot of opposition. Like I had people say to me, "I don't understand how you could be doing this and believe in that," and I don't think I ever really had a good answer for it at the time. And I guess that's something that I hope and be able, and like teaching, that we can teach kids how to answer that question. Yeah, I think when I was younger, I tried a lot to kind of see this divide between science and faith, and kind of how to bridge it. But I think as I've grown, both like as a Christian and as I learned more science, you kind of begin to see there's no divide at all. It's not science versus faith. Like that's not how it is, because science is the world that God created. It's not opposed, really. I think something that helped me a lot was I'm quite interested in like history of science, ever since I was young, learning about who discovered what, and things like that. And that's something that I think has helped a lot, actually. I read this book a while ago, when I was still at university, about the making of the atomic bomb, which is a joyful subject. But I actually felt really interested by it, because I kind of started to think, like, we think of science as this completely unbiased thing that just exists.
mhm,
But actually, science is created by people who exist in a culture, and it is like formed by that. Because I felt like, if there hadn't been a war on at the time, these people wouldn't have done this. They would have done something else. And like how what's happening in the world shapes science. That was quite a big thing for me, because I think a lot of people, yeah, think that science is like foundational truth that just exists. But really that's not true. It's science is changing all the time. People are coming up with new theories, and yeah, science isn't quite as like hard as you know people think. It's a bit more fluid, whereas the Bible is true.
mhm.
And that was a big thing. Science can change as much as it like, but the word of God endures forever. So that's been a big thing, is that like, rather than trying to look at things in science and look at things in the Bible and try to match them up, is just have the Bible as the foundation. That's what I know for certain is true.
Mhm.
And then science can fit in and on top of that, and it does. Which is, it's not to say that science is wrong, but it's the Bible which is first, which is true. And yeah, I think it's people who are not scientists, or I don't know what they think science is. I remember my like first day at university, one of the lecturers said, if someone ever says to you, science says this, they're probably wrong. And he said, because science doesn't say anything. Science is a method, a way of understanding the world. It's not fact. It's like a method of testing and finding out theories. And I think, you know, we can and we should be scientific about our faith. We should be logical
Mhm.
in our reading of the Bible, and things like that. So yeah, like science informs faith, and faith informs science. I think just the same, but like theology in the Bible is what comes first. Everything that we learn has to match up with our knowledge of who God is, and we get that from the Bible, and then science just fits in with that, I think.
Absolutely. The I love what you say about science is about a method, it's a way of
Mm.
thinking. And I actually think from just years of kind of reading and looking and being around creation scientists, I think they are better at communicating that message of what science is than secular scientists.
Mm.
They're
Yeah.
very much to do with look, observe, what do you see? What's the logical method? What are you observing? Is it testable? Is it, and that being able to differentiate something that is a scientifically proven fact to something that's a hypothesis,
Yeah.
something that's built on conjecture, and being able to distill these different ideas and not just put it all out there. Oh, the science says, because you're
Mm.
absolutely right, because the science that's not that's a really good way of looking at it. Science doesn't say anything. One of the that's this is one of the things I find fascinating about astronomy
Mm.
is we of it as people, our view of the universe is very, very narrow and very, very limited just by our technology and the vast sizes and scales that you're dealing with. And I find that the story of our recent exploration, or not exploration of, but our studies of Pluto, which again are very limited. We've only made one flyby of Pluto, and that was, I think, then before 2020, pre-COVID. Everything's pre-COVID, post-COVID in my mind.
Yeah.
It was pre-COVID. And we flew past Pluto. And so all through my life, if you read if all the kind of astronomy books, space books I read as a child and as a teenager, Pluto was this dead, rocky planet, probably heavily cratered, a bit like our moon, not very interesting. And we flew by Pluto and it discovered that it had new geology, so that it had there's signs of geological activity, which for a planet of the age that they think it is, it's so small, any internal heat that would drive geological activity should have cooled off and be dead long, long, long ago. It should have just been this dead planet. And it completely transformed their thinking just by flying past it. They didn't go down, they didn't visit it, they didn't get samples, they didn't probe it, it was a flyby. And it rewrote the textbooks on Pluto, but also put in question things about solar system formation and how can this ancient piece of rock be geologically active? What is the mechanisms? All these things, these questions, it gave more questions than it answered. And we see that time and time again, that when we probe a little, just Pluto's obviously Pluto is far away, but actually it's not far away. When we think about the scale of the solar system and beyond, and now we're trying to find exoplanets, and the big thing is trying to find an exoplanet that might have life. And but what they've discovered with exoplanets is every planetary system is different from our own, and it completely calls into question everything they thought about how solar systems, how star systems form. So again, science always changes, but the Bible is sure and it's our foundation. And um, I found even in my personal study of things like astronomy, which can be very anti-God, and a lot of top astronomers are hardcore atheists, that they don't have all the answers. And when you look at, I keep seeing it pointing back to the evidence of a creator, and it's actually quite mind blowing. The
Mm.
levels of design. I don't know if you've ever come across a man called Hugh Ross. He wrote a book called Design to the Core. He's not a young Earth creationist, he's an old age Earth creationist. However, he calculated the probability of the Earth existing by chance, given all the different parameters that you would need to have life and a like an intelligent civilization functioning, and it was like one in like a page of zeros. It was like to the power of some 10 to the 32, I think. It was insane. And just like, yeah.
Yeah.
And this whole thing and this whole book is all about design to the core, how everything from the subatomic level right up to the universe level is completely designed for
Mm.
the Earth to be sustaining of life, and it was really quite just really fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, when you were teaching the state system, this was something that you would not have even been able to touch on.
Yeah, it was difficult. Yeah, I think I tried my best to kind of be faithful in it. I had to teach about, Big Bang Theory and stuff,
Yeah.
but I was quite hard on teaching, all of this is theory and there's other theories out there. This is what you need to know to pass your exam, but
Uh-huh.
is it true? Like that's up for you to figure out.
But even now, everything that they've subsequently, all the work they're doing around about the Big Bang is the only thing they can be certain of was there was a beginning.
Yeah, and we can agree on that.
Yeah, and it's like all the evidence they use for a Big Bang, it's like actually it's evidence for a point of creation.
Yeah.
And they actually have no clue, really, what happens after that. They've got there was last year, I think it was, the James Webb Telescope, they were trying to get a definitive answer to the age of the universe. And they had different this new James Webb Telescope's got some really cool pictures, by the way. Um it's Yeah, they had different measurements from the James Webb Telescope looking at different things, and they used the data from two different experiments to calculate the age of the universe, and they were wildly different. So there
Yeah.
was something wrong in their fundamental hypotheses that were not correct
Mm.
to get for the maths to come out with two and like massively different. Like, okay, there's something we don't understand. Um, it's just I find that really really fascinating that
Yeah.
there's still so much out there for us to study and learn, and explore and to explore from that lens of there is a creator who has made everything for his purposes and for his glory.
Mm.
Can you go through the classes that you are going to be teaching with us and tell us a little bit about each one and what you'll be teaching and yeah, what to expect?
Yeah, sure. So I've got um IGCSE physics, which is EdXL. Obviously, I know you agree with me. Physics is amazing. It's using maths and reason to understand the world around us and to understand creation, and it's great. And a big it'll lead on obviously to if people want further study of physics and of science, but also any sort of engineering and stuff like that. Physics is absolutely everywhere, so that one will be very good. Then we have combined science IGCSE, the Cambridge IGCSE. That's a really great kind of overview of all three sciences. So yeah, really good if people are not too sure which science they want to do. Studying a science at that level is so important. Like yeah, so many things will ask for a science to GCSE or Nat 5 level. So if kids are not too sure, that'll be a really good one. And then we're doing a pre-iGCSE Maths class, which I think will be good. So that's for, yeah, kids who are, past the primary school level, but not quite at the GCSE level. Um,
I guess I
and
just I'll just interrupt you there. Something that's really important as well for parents listening is to understand, because we all, one of the questions homeschool parents don't like is, what grade is your child at? Because we're like, I don't know, because they're like, they can
yeah,
read like 2 years above their age, but their maths is 2 years behind their age, and or a mixture of all those. And so with the pre-IGCSE maths, you might that, although we're saying that kind of lower S1 S2 kind of age, 12, 13, you might have a 10, 11, or 10-year-old might be young, but 11-year-old who is amazing at maths and just ready to do it. You might have a 13, 14-year-old who is not near, just not ready to start IGCSE and needs a little bit of a
mm,
boost before they start. You might be thinking maths is going to be the last thing they're going to be setting as an exam. We're not even going to be ready till they're maybe 17 to sit an IGCSE. This class is that broad kind of foundational piece to be able to either get that younger child who's amazing at maths ready for that slightly higher level of maths learning, because they might not just be ready for the rigor of IGCSE, and
mm,
the exams are long. They're designed for 16-year-olds, so your kids might be great at maths, but they might not be able to sit an
mm,
exam when they're 13, 14. Or it might be that kid who is really struggling with math and still needs that foundational pieces in place and just shored up before. Yeah.
yeah. That's why I think, like, for those kids who are great at maths and love it, it'll be good to teach them sort of exactly the language that they need and the notation that they need, like how to actually write down their maths. 'Cause I feel like a lot of kids that are good at maths will just do things in their head and tell you the answer, and they
Yeah.
can't do that in exams. So it's good to be able to teach them this is actually how you explain your maths.
I
And
would also
yeah,
say, at the risk of sounding sexist, I think the males of the world are worse at that than the females. I'm sure
yeah.
there will be boys who are amazing at writing down their thinking and girls who are rubbish, but generalization.
Yeah, I think maybe, yeah. But then, yeah, for the kids who are maybe not so confident at maths, I think it will be a good course just to build confidence. So many kids are afraid of maths.
Yeah.
They really are. And I think a lot of parents probably are afraid of maths too.
Uh-huh.
Um, so just to kind of make it seem a bit more manageable, build some confidence in maths is going to be good for people. Yeah, so I'm excited for that one. And then we also have the GCSE Astronomy, which you're much more the expert on. But yeah, that'll be, I mean, astronomy is amazing, like what you've been saying. The stars and all that is amazing. And I know there'll be kids out there who are very interested in it. And we should teach them it, and we should teach them how it points to God. The heavens declare the glory of God, and that's for us to show them for sure.
And the maths one, the astronomy one is, I would say, for parents thinking about the astronomy, because I've written a textbook for GCSE astronomy. Look, I went through the spec for it and I put all that information in a textbook, because there wasn't really any, the things that I could find on the market weren't, I don't think you could pass an exam by just buying them, and they were just a bit light. The GCSE astronomy has got quite a bit of rigorous maths. I'd say the maths in it is a bit more tricky than IGCSE physics maths. It's
Mm.
similar, very similar in level, but it's just a bit more technical. Some of the ideas are more technical. Physics, I would say, is a bit like applied physics. No,
Yeah.
astronomy is a bit like applied physics. Um, but the GCSE astronomy is that bit more difficult than physics. So it is for those kids who really do love their science and are confident with their maths. Just for
Mm.
some of those maths ideas in it are tricksy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say something else about the maths and I can't. remember what it is. Maths anxiety. That's
Oh,
just,
it's huge, yeah.
it's huge. And when you see a child struggle with it, it is absolutely fascinating. Because you will get somebody who is very, very bright and very, very capable, but their anxiety with maths literally shuts them down. And sometimes it can have, they can become physically unwell when they have to do maths. It can actually
Mhm.
manifest as like there's something physically wrong with this child. It's huge. And so for anyone who's, if you've got children who suffered that, slow the pace of maths right down. If your 50-year-old is there, don't feel that they have to be doing the IGCSE or the Nat 5. Go for the pre, so it's just they have that, build their confidence. Say that this, yeah, all because it's there is actually a medical name for it. There's like a disorder linked to maths
Mm,
anxiety. Um,
yeah. But I think like a little small group class like this is so good for something like that because yeah, I think people might have an idea that like your kid's just sitting at a screen, but really, they'll get a lot of attention. It's a small group, and I think it's very good for kids who are quite anxious about maths. But in my experience, it helps them a lot, little things like this.
and at that age as well, for kids who are a
Mm.
bit younger, that age is actually a lovely age to be teaching because they're quite chatty and interactive, and they want
Yeah,
to, they're like, yeah, they just like talking to you, and they like games, and they're just a really nice age group to teach even online. And as you said, it's a small group, so all our classes at Arise are capped at 10 students, which is a lovely small group, so your child is going to be able to get that attention. They're not going to
mm.
be, they can't hide.
Yeah.
Well, that's another, I've taught online classes that have been like 20, and it's harder to keep, they're split between Zoom screens, and you're like, you've turned your camera off. Why have you turned your camera off? You're asking, like, they're not there, they've disappeared, they've gone off. So a smaller class of 10, just, you, they can't hide. You get to know the kids. It's more welcoming to class discussion, and the kids will feel less intimidated than 20 people they don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So check out all Hannah's classes. If you have questions for us, for Hannah specifically, you can email Arise Home Education, Arise at arisehomeeducation.com, and and Hannah will be able to get back to you and answer any questions that you may have. Or you can ask them on either Instagram or Facebook, and we'll get back to you from there as well. But thank you, Hannah, so much for joining us today. It's been really great chatting to you and getting to know
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
And hopefully we might have you back again over the summer. We can talk more geeky science stuff.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Emma from Arise, and I'm here to tell you about and to welcome you to our new podcast at Arise Home Education. This is going to be a place where home educators can be encouraged, where you can be informed of great resources, where we hope to give you practical ideas and tips and advice for every stage of your home ed journey. We're going to be having guests. We're going to have, in the next coming weeks, we'll be featuring our tutors at Rise Home Education. We'll also be having other guests who will come along and speak to you about areas that they are passionate about or where they have a particular expertise. In the next couple of weeks, look out for a podcast with where I interview Claire Rogerson. Many of you will be familiar with Claire if you live in the Central Belt. She's a well-known figure in the home ed community. She is absolutely lovely. She is a great encourager, a great networker. She loves bringing home educators together and creating that space for community. She's going to be talking about creative ways to home educate when you have young children. And that's she's just lovely. I think you'll all love Claire. We will also be discussing more spiritual aspects of home education. Coming up, I'm going to be doing a podcast on prayer as a home educator and both the need creative ways to facilitate prayer as a home ed mum, because we know that can be really difficult when you're surrounded by young children. And we're also going to be discussing some of the more political and topical points that are affecting home educators and Christians in the UK and in Scotland. So I hope this will be a blessing to you. If you really want to see anything featured in this podcast, please put that in the comments and please subscribe. Thank you.